Hi, I'm Sheila Anderson, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to this time here. With I'm so happy, you asked me to do this. I'm Sheila Anderson, and I'm a lot of things. I'm an author, an announcer, producer. I do a lot of things in the jazz world, and I just want to start introducing myself by saying, for those of you know, my moniker is Queen of Hang. And some people don't know, actually, most people don't know how this moniker came it came to me. I did not give it to myself. I am the Queen of Hang because when I got into jazz, I didn't know. I used to work in publishing and I got into jazz when I was a volunteer for WBGO from 1987 to 1995 when Thurston Briscoe, God rest his soul, asked me to temporarily do Sunday Morning Harmony. And that was 1994. I started in 95. And so much for temporary. So, hey, Facebook user, couple Facebook users, hi. So I felt that I needed to, because I hadn't been in the jazz world, active in the jazz world, I really wanted to get to know about the music, learn about the music from the musicians. I asked Thurston if I could do an interview. I did do interviews on Sunday morning, and he said no. I had I had been certified to do public access show on Time Warner. So I thought to myself, well, I might as well do a TV show. I called it The Art of Jazz. Unfortunately, I didn't know many musicians. So I said, well, how am I going to meet musicians? I took myself to Bradley's, a very famous club. And I went by myself because most of my friends aren't into jazz, which is hilarious. So I took myself to Bradley, sat at the bar, and I figured if I could talk to the bartender, if nothing else. So musicians came off the stage, and Michael Adon and Ray Drummond and musicians, and I sort of, sheepishly said, "Hi, I'm Sheila Anderson from BGO. I have a TV show. Would you want to be on it?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I decided I had to immerse myself into the jazz community. And I put myself on the schedule. I was still working in publishing, a 9 to 5 job. And I put myself on the schedule. I get off work. I would go to the 802 to the Union for their jam session on Monday night. Then I would go to Wells to listen to the Harlem Renaissance Orchestra. And then I would end my night at St. Nick's Pub and walk home because I live on 149th. And so it became like every day I would decide where I'm going to go and who I'm going to see and just immerse myself in the jazz community. And it just so I finally bought a car in '97, and I was driving up, and Michael Bourne had announced that a musician was going to be somewhere at some club, and he had the musician wrong. So I called him. Yes, I had a phone, a car phone or whatever. That was '97. And I said, "Hey, Michael," I said, so-and-so's playing at such and such a place. So he got on back on the mic and he said, um, "Sheila Anderson, the Queen of Hang, called to say that I misspoke. And if anyone knows who's playing, it's Sheila." So Michael Bourne actually gave me the moniker Queen of Hang. And he said either every time he'd ask me if I'd been to a place, he said either I'd been there, I was going there. So it took me a while to kind of embrace the name, but now it's just it's cool. It's cool. So that's how I got my moniker. Again, Queen of Hang, and becoming the queen of less hang, actually, especially since the pandemic. But I still try to keep keep my hand out there and checking out the music. And so my publishing. So let me start at the beginning. People, how did I get into jazz? I I'm third child out of four, and my oldest brother, who actually named me, was into jazz. He was just into he had incredible music collection, and I remember I was about 6, 7. I would listen to his records, and I fell in love with Miles Davis, ESP, Ornette Coleman, uh, Richard Groove Holmes, and I mean those were the three that I would gravitate to. My mom listened to opera and classical and spirituals. So Sunday we had one record player in our house, and we had to listen to each other's music. We didn't have home entertainment units until later to take into your room. So she said on Sunday that Sunday was her day, and we couldn't play any of our music because it was her day. So I listened to Nina Simone and all this music, but I gravitated. My sister was into rock, and then my younger brother and I were Motown, etc. So there's just all kinds of music running through our house on a regular basis. And I decided later on I played an instrument. We all had to play an instrument. I started with the recorder, and then I moved to the flute. And I was really, I at that point I decided I was going to be a jazz musician. I was going to be a flautist, like Bobby Humphrey. I was going to be a jazz flautist, but I didn't. I really hated theory. But anyway, I was then thinking, well, I'd be a musician, but then I had an uncle who was a musician and a jazz musician. But I at 16, and this is a little ramble a little bit, but at 16, I was elected New York State Youth President of the NAACP. So I put my focus in civil rights, and took my attention away from my flute. So that's kind of how I you know I didn't, like I said, I didn't. My brother played for me Eric Dolphy once, Far Cry, and I was like, oh my God, I can't play that. But when I moved to New York in 1980, I did bring my flute, and I played in weddings and stuff like that. But I never really knew what I wanted to do. And, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And to be honest with you, I tell people I didn't say the words hang out, but I just wanted to just hang out. And, I said, well, who's going to pay me to do that? So I thought maybe, I'd get into sales or something, because I was a people person. I always wanted to be around artists. My sister and I talked once about um, just about what I can do, and so maybe you should be a manager, or maybe So anyway, I sort of, like I said, slid into to jazz. And like I said, when I started volunteering for WBGO, that led me to on air, and then I got fired from my publishing job, and through a connection, I was asked to help marketing manager at the Newark Museum, help her with Jazz in the Garden. And this is so Reader's Digest version of my life. But anyway, she ended up getting fired, and I got the job. And, so that's why I ended up at the Newark Museum. For those of you who know that I worked at the Newark Museum and still produce um, Jazz in the Garden, even though they didn't have Jazz in the Garden this year due to the pandemic. And I'm also an author. That came from a whole nother way, but like I said, I was in publishing, and when I lost my sales job as publishing, I ended up going, and I had a year off, and I needed money, so I went and did reprints for Lions Press, and they didn't have, because he had sold the company. He didn't have. He had a line of quote books, the Quotable Dad, Quotable Hunter, Quotable, that kind of thing. And I wrote one sheet of paper, 3 paragraphs, Quotable Jazz Lover. I said, "Hey Tony, I want to do Quotable Jazz Lover." He laughed, and which of course I wasn't surprised. So he laughed and he said, "I don't want to do new titles." Of course, he'd sold the company. So my 4 week job turned into 6 months, and after, when it was, my job was coming to a close, and he came into my cube and he said, "Hey, you wanted to do Quotable Jazz Lover?" He said, "I have a publishing friend who wants to do a quote book of all music. So if you want to write a proposal, write a proposal." I said, "Okay." So I wrote a proposal and I got the contract. So it was pretty amazing. And then my second book, so it was a quotable musician from Bach to Tupac. And my second book came. I've always been fascinated with artists and how people think, and sort of get into their heads. So I wanted to do an interview book um, about musicians, basically. And my publisher didn't like the idea, because I had one of a book that I love, that I used as a guide actually when I interviewed for my TV show, was um, Arthur Taylor's Notes and Tones. That book is incredible, and I interviewed some of the musicians that he had interviewed from a TV show, including Leon Thomas, because I wanted to see how their life was, reflected in the interview um, of his. So I came up with, my publisher had started a series of how to grow. So it went from the quote book to how to grow, and that's when he asked me to do my second book, How to Grow as a Musician. What all musicians must know to succeed. I added the tag because to me it was more about how to succeed or grow in any field. It's just that musicians were the ones that I interviewed. So that came out in '05. And fast forward, um, the second edition was published right before the pandemic. It was published November 19th. So I was putting a book tour together and all that, and then the pandemic happened. And but I can say that I'm very proud of this book. The difference between the first edition and this edition, second edition, is basically 10 years of experience versus 25 years experience. And it's I also included social media, a lot of things that weren't in the first edition. And because the interviews, some of several people have died since the first edition. So to honor them, I have a last chapter on the shoulders of, and included some of their interview with me. So it's Al Jarreau, Ruth Brown, Billy Taylor, um, let's see, Edwin Hawkins. I mean, just really, I'm so honored that musicians would talk to me over these years. So appreciative. So this book is more. The second edition is more well rounded, and there's a little something for everybody. People coming out of school, people who are at a crossroads in their career, perhaps. Um, I have a chapter on. I kept some of the information from the first book, but it's basically an entire new book that I'm really, like I said, I'm very proud of. So Karen Kennedy, hi Karen Kennedy, you are asking my thoughts on equity, jazz, and women. Hmm. Well, um, I can only speak to um, my experience, which is I mean, and I say limited, but I have not had. I haven't had any. Well, I'm about to lie now. I got to think about this. Equity. I think I got to think about that, Karen. I got to think about that because I find that the reasons why I have not been compensated in the way I think I should is because I didn't know how to ask for it. So I can't, I got to, well, we'll talk about that. Thanks for that question. I hadn't thought about that. Um, and let's see. Oh, the Duke Ellington panel. Oh, wow. 1999. Oh my goodness. Okay, Facebook user, Duke Ellington panel with me in Newark, 1999. Oh my goodness. Hi. Okay. Anyway, so like I said, the book is you can get my books. You can go to my publisher, Allworth Press or Amazon or however. But if you want a signed copy of the second edition, then you can get it from my website. Here's How to Grow as a Musician. You can get it from my website, SheilaAnderson.com. So, hey Bradley, hey everybody. But like I said, my getting once I got into the industry, one of the questions, Gail, you suggested I address is what advice musicians gave me. Musicians actually, musicians have given me such great advice, good memories. I mean, the late Jeff Clayton taught me how to MC. He and Johnny Gary from Jazzmobile, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I would MC every Wednesday at Jazzmobile, Grant's Tomb. And Johnny Gary I'd get off the stage, baby, this is what you got to do. And he'd, yell at me. Musicians would yell at me. Everybody was yelling at me. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. But I learned how to MC. Bobby Watson, who I just saw on Sunday, did my TV show, and we got to talking about money. And he said, never mess with a musician's money. So you could be the nicest person, people could love you, but if you screw with musicians' money, nobody's gonna like you. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. You don't want to screw up anybody's money. So I always made sure when I was, producing that, I always pay musicians when they show up for the gig. I don't wait till later. I'm like, here's your money. You don't have to chase me. I don't have to chase you. But I mean, musicians have given me such good advice about life. That's what I address in the chapter, the hang, because I have a chapter on the hang. I decided to add a chapter to that because, people sometimes think that hanging is just, out, you're just out, I guess wasting time, whatever. But to me, it's getting to know people. You sit down and have conversations, find out what people are reading. Javon Jackson turned me on to the Four Agreements. It's like, oh my goodness, it's more connecting with people who you love, you work with, you see musicians, and it's been great. Now let's see, Gail, memories. My favorite memories from Bradley's. Well, I got to Bradley's on the tail end of Bradley's, so I don't have any amazing stories of when Bradley's was in its heyday. But what I loved about Bradley's was, it was a great hang, and the sets were late, went on because they had 1 a.m. set. Because I was going there on a regular basis before the fire, and then but just meeting so many. It was just a great place to hang, and I used the time to say when musicians would criticize something happening on stage, I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? What, explain to me. what does it mean when they're not playing the changes? What is, because I really, I didn't really know a lot of stuff. And then, what musicians to listen to. Um, I would get tips from them. And let's see, hey Rome, let's see, oh, my birthday parties, yeah. Well, no more. Yeah, I started Rome as addressing my Gemini party. It came together. My friend Julie, God rest her soul, she actually passed away last year from COVID. Sad. Her birthday was the day before mine, and when we turned 50, she said, we said, Sheila, we should have a party because some of our friends didn't make it to 50, so we should have a party. So we had a party. We had a joint party, and the next year I said, I know so many people born on June 12th, my birthday. I wanted to bring all the June 12th friends together so they could meet each other. I mean, literally, I know like 12 people born on 30. I know so many people. So I called one of the June 12th friends, Warren. I said, hey, Warren, want to have a party at your house? Because he's got a terrace. It's like, okay, we had a party. Then the next year, it's like, okay, I have a party here, but I need another apartment. So, because mine's not big enough for a party, so in my opinion, party I want to have. So I knocked on my neighbor's door. I said, hey, Mika, I said, I want to do a party, have a party for my birthday, but I want to use your apartment too. Is that okay? You can invite friends. He's like, yeah, okay. So that's how it started. And then it turned into a 4 apartment party on 2 floors in my building. So Rome has been to several. Yes, this is true. Um, okay, Bradley, the hang is one of the best aspects of being in the industry. I can agree with you. I can agree with you. I mean, because jazz musicians and jazz people are accessible. It's not like they're in somewhere. I mean, and they're fun. I mean, I used to love when Tommy Flanagan and Kenny Barron and all the pianists would get together. I mean, they the Clayton brothers played at Sweet Basil because I think it was Sweet Rhythm. I forget which one it was at the time, and it was Halloween. So it's in the village, and they were shocked. I mean, James Brown, who owned it, said, "Oh, people really aren't going to come out." It was packed, and I remember Tommy Flanagan, Kenny, like all these pianists, like all these musicians came out to hang, and it was so incredible to sit and listen to them cut up and tell stories. I mean, the hang is really, really fun. Also, at the Village Vanguard, after when everybody's gone, we just sit around and talk and just really, really. Oh, it was Sweet Rhythm. Yeah, yeah. That was an incredible night. That was an incredible night, Gail. And that was what, 98, 99, something like that. I believe it was like 99 or 8. Let's see. Oh yes, Karen Kennedy, you are a Cali girl. Yeah, I was overwhelmed by the Village Vanguard, actually when I first went, because, and yes, Bradley's did have that set at 3 a.m. You're right. But when I started hanging, I think the last set was at 1. So people would just, go there after all their gigs. It was really the hang. I gotta say, I had, this is what my life that I'm living now is a life that I dreamed of when I was a kid. It just didn't have a face to it. I used to ask my dad all the time. I said, "Daddy, when are we going to paint the town red?" And I really didn't even know what that meant, but it sounded like fun. I just wanted to like hang out because I guess I love being around artists, writers, and just people who are just so interesting and fun, and so I guess, like I said, I did become a jazz musician, but So I play one on the radio, right? So, the fact that I was able to get into the jazz industry and, work and do, it's pretty, like I said, I knew as a kid what I kind of wanted what my life to look like. I knew it wasn't a traditional 9 to 5 job. I just didn't know what what I was going to create, as it were. So, I'm pinching myself actually. The pandemic, of course, you know, really, you know, put things in perspective in a way because, it's like if I had taken any, it's just like we can't take anything for granted. We just can't. And I lost so many friends and family. Just, I mean, it was heartbreaking. I spent my day between grief and gratitude pretty much last year because I was grateful for um, the good things in my life, and I have a wonderful family and friends, and I'm grateful for that. So, yes, Rome, the moldy fig. That was, oh wow, that was so short lived. It was a young brother. Okay, I forgot his name now. It'll come to me. But he had worked at Fat Cat in different places, and he opened up a place that he called the Moldy Fig down on around Lafayette, around there, and he put a lot of money into it and fixed it up. But then the business didn't really happen, and he ended up. Actually he went broke, closed, but then he died. He had some something, I forgot what illness he had, but he was only 30, 34, something like that. John Batiste that's where John Batiste went. Charlie, that's right, Charlie Brown, right? That's where John Batiste was all the time, like every week. So because John had just come to town, and he was I'd say pretty much. I mean that was his spot, until again Charlie until he passed on. Very sad, but that was fun while it lasted as well. Good food, good brother, nice people. Okay, okay, I got 2 minutes. Eugene Holly. Hey, Eugene. Um, let's see. Well, between grief and gratitude, I thought about Gail. I've been thinking about writing something. Um, I've been thinking about that because yeah, it was yeah yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start crying when I think about how many people I lost. It just really put things in perspective. But yes, between grief and gratitude is, now, things are looking up, and I'm glad, work is coming back. Things are, but we still have to be careful. I've only been to Birdland since the opening up. I haven't been anywhere else yet. I'm still a little, other than outdoor festivals, and they're coming back too, which was great, which is great. I'm just so that's a good thing, right? So we can be grateful and move on. So let's see. I love hanging and singing, jazz musician. Yeah. Okay, so I got a minute left, and I just want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank Gail Boyd again for asking me to spend this half hour with you and connecting, reconnecting with everybody. So I'll see you on the radio, as they say, and or maybe I'll see you out in a club. Smoke is expanding, so they're taking over. I think two buildings or two storefronts next to them. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they expand to, and that's that. So love you. Thanks again.